Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second session within the Christian Mindfulness course. I hope you've had a good week, and I hope that you had a chance over the past week to reflect on the fruit or the fruits of the Spirit that you had a chance to reflect on in the last session. And I hope that the last session was helpful for you, and I hope you had a chance to use some of the exercises during the week. Before we crack on, I'll just remind you, it's just helpful to remember that with mindfulness exercises, sometimes we can get distracted when we're going through times of quiet and we're reflecting, and things come into your head or things in the room around you distract you. And if they do, that's fine. Just ground yourself, bring yourself back into what's being said or being done, and focus again. It's normal to have distractions, but remember to put them back aside and to keep focusing. So having said that, let's continue in our exercises. So the very first one I want to do is this very simple breathing one again, just to ground us back into the space, to calm our mind, calm our body, calm our soul. So I want you to the next minute just to take some deep breaths in and some deep breaths out, focusing on your breathing, focusing on your body, focusing on the space around you, focusing on God's presence with you. So just take a chance now for the next 30 seconds to take some deep breaths and have a chance to breathe. So just settle your mind now. And what I'd like to do next is to do what's called Lectio Divina. Now, you may have done it before in your churches or Christian settings, wherever you've been. Lectio Divina is Latin for divine reading. It's very simple. It means that we read a Bible verse, a chapter, a passage, whatever it is, and we read it a few times over, carefully thinking about what's been said, the very words that are being used, the meaning, the context, thinking about the surroundings of it, that helps us to gain a better understanding of that Bible passage. So I'm going to do that with the lost sheep now. So let's turn to Luke 15, which says, "Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbours together and says, 'Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent." So having read that once, what I'd like you to do now is read through it a couple more times, slowing down each time even more, going through it sentence by sentence, and then again word by word. Think about it. What do you think each word means? What do you think Jesus is trying to say in that? Why do you think Jesus used the specific words he used? And see what God has to say with you in this moment. So spend the next couple of minutes just going through the passage now, carefully reflecting. And I hope that was useful for you in some way, and that you really felt God speaking to you during that time. And the second exercise I'd like to do is simply to list things that we're grateful for. When we have anxiety and depression, it can often feel like nothing is going well around us, like the world is kind of crumbling, and as the Psalms say, it feels like we're in a bit of a pit. So it's good to ground ourselves every now and then in the things that we're grateful for, and to remind ourselves of the things that God has been doing. So what I'd like to do now is, for the next couple of minutes or so, is to simply list in your mind as many things as you can think of that you're grateful for, that God has done in your life. And just a note to say, I think it's important when we talk about adoration, not only to thank God for what He's done, but who He is in His very nature. So spend a couple of minutes now thinking of, listing in your head things that you're thankful for God that He's done in your life, and also thanking God for who you see Him to be and the things that He has done to show His incredible nature. So hopefully you managed to have a good list there in your mind of things that you're grateful for. And I encourage you throughout the week to keep thinking of things that you're grateful for as they come, sometimes just being happy for the small things that come in life. Now what I'd like to focus on now is a song which is called Turn Your Eyes. The reason I want to focus on this song is because I often find that God speaks to me through songs. I can look at several points in my life where God has very firmly spoken to me through songs, whether it's a secular song or through a worship song. And the last time He did this was last year when the coronavirus started happening. The pandemic started to get quite deadly, and around April, when a lot of people were dying. And I took a chance to pray about it, to share my anxieties with God, and He reminded me of the song Turn Your Eyes, which I'd completely forgotten about. And the lyrics to it are, "Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in His wonderful face, and the things of this world will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace." And when God reminded me of that song, all my anxieties completely fizzled out in that moment, and I was completely filled with peace and adoration of God, because I realized that no matter what's going on around us, as the song says, the things of this world grow strangely dim in the light of Jesus, in the light of God's majesty. So what I'd like to do now is to reflect on those lyrics for a couple of minutes and ground yourself, thinking of God's glory, thinking of His majesty, thinking of who He is and the incredible miracles He's done across the universe and across human history, and that He will continue to do, and completely set your mind, your eyes and your soul and your heart on Jesus for the next couple of minutes, reflecting on this song. I think that's such a beautiful worship song, and I hope you enjoyed having a chance to reflect on that and to connect with God on that moment and reflect on His glory and just be present in His majesty and allow His presence to fizzle away all the anxieties that are going on in our hearts. That's not always easy, but when that does happen, it's a real blessing. So the last exercise I want to do now is a simple prayer reflecting on the Trinity, and it goes like this. Father, make me eternally faithful. Christ, make me eternally thankful. Spirit, make me eternally peace-filled. And what I'd like you to do now is just to go through that prayer a few times in your head over the next minute or two. Go through line by line, go through it, repeating it over and over. Say it as a prayer to God, and just think in your head of all the things that it says about being faithful, about being thankful, and about being peace-filled. And if you want to say your own prayer during that time, you can, but I encourage you to repeat over and over that prayer for the next couple of minutes and see what God has to say with you during this time. I hope that was a good chance to pray to God, reflecting on the Trinity and the different elements it talks about, being thankful, faithful, and peace-filled. That's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll have different exercises next week, and I encourage you to come back at the exact same time next week. And I encourage you once again to use these exercises that you found during this week. If you find any particularly helpful, please do make sure you repeat them whenever you feel anxious or depressed, and raise these issues with God and come to Him during your times of trouble. God bless everyone. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.